On this episode of AVWeek, InfoComm 2020 is going virtual. The impact of COVID-19 on live staging and events industry and what we can do to help it. And Verizon is buying Bluejeans. All that and more. Next on AVWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 452, recorded Friday, April 17th, 2020. Bright and shiny.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Crestron and by
Sure, sound extraordinary.
And by Buy-In.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information we have gathered for this week, first and foremost, a fantastic content producer and a very dear friend that I've read for a number of years. Her name is Kirsten Nelson. Welcome, ma'am.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. So glad to be here.
All of y'all are on the East Coast this week. I just realized that. Steve Greenblatt is from Control Concepts, also the host of our State of Control program that looks at the control and automation segment. Welcome, sir.
Glad to be here. Thanks, Tim.
Absolutely. And last but not least, my buddy, Mr. Brock McGinnis from AVTOS, who is a new consultant, but also a longtime AV industry pro and a good buddy as well. Thank you, sir.
Good to be here, Tim, even though I'm not actually on the East Coast.
You're in Eastern time zone. I'm sorry. You are correct.
Yes, there we go.
He's actually in GTA, and I learned that term this week at our virtual event. It does not stand for Grand Theft Auto, which is what I thought it stood for. It stands for the Greater Toronto Area if you are in Canada.
Exactly. And I happen to be right dab smack in the middle of Toronto.
All right, there you go. So I mentioned this week, thank you for everybody. Actually, Steve and Brock both were part of our event this week. We called it LFH, Learn From Home. While you work from home, 3 days, virtual conference, great keynotes, great education sessions.
Yeah.
So by the time this posts, but sometime next week, all of the sessions will be up on our website. So you can check all those out. All the keynotes are up. So Brock's session is up. But Steve's is not yet, so you can go watch Brock and Jeremy Ellisar. And
if you have absolutely nothing else to do.
Oh, stop it! You guys did fantastic. All right, let's kick this off. Interesting week this week when it comes to news, and I'm not making that up. First and foremost, this is from Verizon's website. Didn't think I'd ever cover a story on Verizon for AV, but Verizon Business enters into agreement to acquire Bluejeans. If you haven't heard this news already, Verizon Business today announced that it has entered into a definitive agreement to acquire Bluejeans Network, a trusted enterprise-grade video conferencing and event platform. The acquisition expands Verizon's immersive unified communications portfolio. Bluejeans cloud-based video service currently serves a wide variety of business segments, from small organizations to some of the world's largest multinational brands. Brock, I am going to start on this with you. My first initial reaction was, why? Why is this? There are a couple of implications here that I'm going to get to at the very end. I'm going to let you guys comment and talk about this. But my question, I guess, is first to you, Brock, is what is Verizon thinking with this move?
I think Verizon is a communications company, and this is a communications medium that they didn't previously participate in. Bluejeans is a really well-established brand name at this point. It would be an attractive target, for Verizon. And how else does Verizon grow? How do they show their shareholders that they're doing something new? So, from a business perspective, they went, oh, that's bright and shiny, and everybody's talking about Zoom. So, maybe we need a Zoom of our own. Let's go buy that one.
All right, Mr. Greenblatt, same question. Is what are they thinking, and does this make business sense from Verizon and their stockholders' point of view?
It would seem to me, I think that this whole pandemic has certainly made the the visibility of online collaboration and conferencing and these types of tools valuable. And although we use Zoom and AVNation's using Zoom, and that seems to be the go-to resource, I'm sure that there are other opportunities out there, and for them, it's a great time for them to get into the game and to be able to expand their offerings. And Bluejeans actually has been around a lot longer than Zoom and does have a following, and also had some niches in the fact that in the beginning it was one of the first to be able to put together to connect some of the collaborative proprietary platforms, right? So there may be some intellectual property or some type of tools and advancements that Bluejeans can offer that Verizon can take to the next level. It's possible that Bluejeans may be tapped out at how far they can go with their company on their own, and Verizon certainly has a following and certainly has a broad audience. And another article that I saw just talked about how this gives Verizon more of an entry point into the B2B space.
That was one of the first biggest selling points of Bluejeans, Steve, if you'll remember. And this was 10, 12 years ago. The fact that at that time, Polycom and Tandberg, before they got bought by Cisco, you couldn't get there, right? It was difficult to connect those two types of platforms. LifeSci is the same way. And this was one of those bridges that brought all of them together. You're right. And that was one of the most first attractive things about Bluejeans.
And I think they were the ones that kind of coined the term virtual meeting room, were they not?
They may have been them or Life Size One. I don't remember, Brock, actually. Anything about it?
Yeah.
Kirsten, what does this do to the landscape and to the playground of the over 200 different soft codecs that are out there? And yes, there are over 200. I think it's 250 somewhere. Wow. This puts Bluejeans back in play with the likes of WebEx, with the likes of GoToMeeting and Zoom now, with the bankroll of Verizon, but also with their network backend.
Yeah, I think based on what they put in that statement, I think they were trying to make a play for where the growth areas are. They actually called them high growth areas of telemedicine, distance learning, and field service work. And based on what I've seen since this pandemic, the number of just average doctor's offices that are suddenly doing telehealth, I mean, they're seeing very clear opportunity on a very ground level. We're talking about so many more opportunities just opened up. And if Verizon can get in there, and they already have like a bunch of enterprise access to those kinds of places. So they're basically trying to catch up with everybody who suddenly needs telemedicine, distance learning, and all the people who are now doing remote field service, which of course, there's a lot of talk about remote field service in general once like HoloLens takes over and people can do a lot of remote support, social distance style. So I think they're just seeing that this is going to continue, and we're always going to need backup for, other waves, other similar situations. So they just want to be in there, like you're saying.
Yeah. I have to bring this question up, and I do for two reasons. First of all, if I don't, my lawyer in training, Josh Rago, will call me on Monday and yell at me. But secondly, in all seriousness, net neutrality, and yes, Brock, it does not impact you right now. It may eventually, depending on what your government does. But net neutrality is a huge issue with this specific purchase. Briefly, net neutrality allows the people that control the pipelines to adjust and constrict their bandwidth based on applications. If this goes through, there is a scenario where Verizon could prioritize Bluejeans traffic over, I don't know, let's say Zoom traffic, or life-size traffic, or WebEx traffic. That is an issue. Whether or not that will be brought up as the FTC looks at this, who knows? But that is something that we have to look at. I don't have an answer. Obviously, none of us know that right now, but there is a possibility where Verizon is a service provider, is a communication service provider, and now they're purchasing a software that absolutely rides on their rails. So something to watch.
I don't get that, Tim.
In what way?
How the throttling would actually be acceptable to Verizon's customers. If you're Citibank and Verizon is your bandwidth provider, and as Citibank you choose to use Zoom rather than Bluejeans, would you not drop Verizon as a service provider if they throttled your communication medium of source? They're not a monopoly. People have other choices.
They do have other choices, but the question is, number one, do you realize that, right? Is it the CEO that realizes it, or is it just the tech that there's 3 levels down from the CEO that realizes what's going on, right? And if the CEO realizes that he can use Bluejeans with no problems, and Zoom, every time he uses Zoom, he has nothing but issues. I'm not trying to disparage most CEOs, but at that point in time, they'll just use Bluejeans.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a valid point, Brock. I just think there are definitely areas to watch here as this moves forward. So thanks so much for watching this first segment of AV Week. To check out the rest of the episode for free, click on the link below or go by the website, avnation.tv. It's avnation.tv.